When you call a function, you can pass variables to it, and when it finishes, it can return something back as well. Let's look at how this is done and how to make sure we understand the scope of these variables. As a simple example, let's create a function add that will receive two numbers, add them together, and return the result. The first thing we need to do is define our function. So I type def to define it, and then I need a name. How about add for this? Then I need to add parameters, and this is what does this function need in order to do its job? In this case, it needs the two numbers. I could choose any variable name that I want, and so how about in this case, I'll call it first and second for the first and second number. I finish the parentheses, and now I put my colon and start indenting. Now I'll go ahead and put my triple quotes and add a docstring here to describe what this does. So this function adds two numbers together and returns the result. Great. Now I can go ahead and put in the body of the function. In this case, it's pretty simple. The result is the first number plus the second number. Now I want to send that result back to the person who called this function, or the code that called this function. And I do that by using the return keyword, and then I choose the name of the variable that I want to send back. In this case, it's called result. But there's nothing magic about the choice of that name. That just happens to be the variable that I want to send back. So now that I have this function defined, I can call it down below in my program here. So let's create a couple of variables. X is 3 and Y is 4. And then I can call this function, add, and I'll pass it X and Y. And then it will return things back, and I'll save them into a new variable. Maybe I'll call it total. Notice this is just like when you called other functions written by other people. But in this case, it's one that we've written, and that's okay. So now let's run this code and see what happens, and maybe we'll print the total out here at the end too. Let's run this, and we'll do it with the debugger so that we can walk through. I'll set a breakpoint at the beginning, and now we can run this with debugging. As we do this, notice at first, nothing happens when we define the function. It was just our way of telling Python that this is now available. I step over those two lines and we see our variables X and Y, and we're going to watch these closely as we jump back and forth. I usually use step over, and if I click step over, it will step over the call to that function and give me the result back. Notice here that I see the return value of the function is coming back as 7, and I can see that that variable total now has the value 7 in it, and it will print that out. It's done the work. So let's do this one more time, but this time let's step into that function call. So when I get to line 11, instead of clicking step over, I'm going to click the down arrow to step into the function. Notice as I do this now, I've jumped up to line 5. I'm in the function itself. And I can see that I have different variables now. I'm no longer seeing X and Y. They're in a different scope. Here, I have my own set of variables to work with, called first and second, but they have been populated with the values that I sent it. I step over, I see the result now of 7, and then when I click step over again, it jumps back because the function is over. So I jump back down to line 10, and notice down here that I'm back to this set of variables, the X and the Y and the total, because the function defined its own scope. I can't use first and second down here. It just doesn't work. Those variables aren't available. Instead, I can print out the total and be done. So let's update the program slightly and call it one more time. This time, instead of passing X and Y, maybe I want to pass Y twice. Can we do that? Sure. It's just passing those values in. And then we'll print the total out again. So now let's go ahead and debug. And I'll step over down here. Now notice I'm on line 11, and when I step into the function, I jump up, and first and second have the values 3 and 4. When I go back, it will jump back to where it came from, line 11 and now on to line 12. Python keeps track of where it was when it called the function so that it knows how to go back. Now, when I call it again, I'll step into it. It jumps back up here again, but this time first and second have different values, a 4 and a 4. It computes the result, and now it jumps back to where it was before. Now I'm down on line 15, and it will print that total out. The add function in this example isn't very complicated, but once you get comfortable with the idea of passing values to functions and getting values back, you can write functions to accomplish any task that you need.